Hey you guys, welcome or welcome back to another video. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you're new to my channel, my name is Ani, and today's video I will be wrapping up my October TBR. So last month I read 10 books, which is a bit extreme for me, to be honest, because my life is so busy. I have 2 kids and they keep me busy all day long. So if I can get through 6 books, I'm happy for a month. My mom was visiting last month, so I got to read some extra books and I am like super happy about it. So the first one I read last month is Tender is the Flesh by Agustina Betzerica. So this book is a dystopia future where there is no animal flesh because a virus killed all animals. So cannibalism is legal, and we are following Marcos, who is a human meat supplier, but he's also conflicted by this, new law. So this book is translated from Spanish, and the person who translated it is Sarah Moses. I feel like she needs a big raise. This was so well written. It's such a page turner. It had me hooked from the first page, and it's a fairly short book, so it was a quick read, but I purposely was slowing myself down because I did not want this to be over so soon. Kind of reminded me a little bit of Handmaid's Tale, to be honest. So many raw emotions. There were times I was angry, and then I was laughing at some comical remarks. It was just so good. I loved every single moment with this book. I gave it 5 stars, of course, as I had predicted. It was really good. So for the Hispanic Heritage Month, I read Mexican Gothic by Silvia Moreno Garcia, and this is the same author of Daughter of Dr. Moreau, which I read a few months back, and I didn't really care for it, so I decided to go with this one instead, especially for, I thought it'd be fun for October, because this was very hyped last year, and I've always wanted to read it, and I'm so glad I did, because this book was so good. So this book is about a young woman from the 50s named Carlota who receives a message from her cousin asking for her help. A cousin who's actually recently been married and kind of lives like out in the country. So when Carlota arrives at her cousin's village, she finds out that there's like weird stuff happening with her cousin at the house that she's living with her husband, and her husband is also acting very strange. So, of course, this is going to be, like I said, it's in the 50s, a historical Gothic type of book, and it was just so good. I absolutely loved this book. So I read something similar to this book earlier this year by T. Kingfisher, and it's called What Moves the Dead, and I felt, kind of similar thing going on. However, it was still, the settings are different. So this one, of course, is in the 50s, and it's, very Gothic vibe, and you got something, natural mixed in with something unnatural happening at the same time. It was just so good. Such a good read for, I feel like, month of October. So of course, as I predicted, it was going to be 5 stars. It is 5 stars. Then I read Year of the Witching by Alexis Henderson. So this book is about a young woman named Emmanuel Moore who is pretty much, does everything by the book, the Holy Protocol, and she finds out that she kind of has these like dark powers within her, and her mom, after her mom passes, Emmanuel finds her mom's diary, and that's where she finds out all these like secrets, and the church is doing, kind of like shady things, and of course Emmanuel gets called into the dark woods, and she will find out even more stuff and how to stop what the church has been doing, which is absolutely wrong, of course. So we're of course following her story. So this is my first book by this author, and if you haven't guessed it by the cover, this is going to be, the whole Salem witch trial era, and I felt like I was transported to that time. It was just so good. It was so captivating. I loved it so much. Just, I predicted 5 stars, and this was a 5-star book for me. To break the cycle of only reading Halloween related books or, month of October related books, I had to listen to an audiobook, and it is Thank You for Listening by Julia Whalen. So this is about a young woman who also happens to be an audiobook narrator who kind of lost her, dreams and future by a tragic accident. So she decides that she's going to do this one last, audiobook narration of a romance book that, was requested by actually the author of the book. So romance book always tend to be a hit or a miss for me, and this book was definitely a hit. So this book was, all about self-discovery and love and, acceptance. And of course it was read by the author, which was like a fantastic touch to this book. I felt like it was just so good. It's funny, it was witty, it was uplifting, it just kept me smiling. I just loved it so much. I give this book 5 stars. I don't know, like I said, romance is a hit or miss for me. This was definitely a hit. And the next book I read is The Book Eaters by Senya, which I have a complete review on right here if you want to check it out. So I will not be discussing too much in this video. So I suggest you check that out. Then I read My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. So this book is set in the 80s about 2 best friends, Gretchen and Abby, who has been best friends since like middle school. And one night, in high school, they go skinny dipping and something happens where Abby is certain that Gretchen is possessed. So of course no one believes Abby, so she decides that she's going to take it upon herself to exorcise Gretchen so she can save her best friend. So this book is set in the 80s, which is like one of my favorite eras anyway, so it was such a great read to have, kind of like time travel to the 80s with all the references and quotes. It was just like such a good read. The only issue I had with this is that it did take a long time to pick up. I feel like nothing really happened for a very, really long time until like almost towards the end of the book. But it was still a good read. It was not as scary as I thought it would be. So that's the only reason I gave it 4 stars. Then I also started a series, the Dresden Files series, and the first book is The Stormfront by Jim Butcher. So this is about Harry Dresden, who is a professional wizard who also happened to help the Chicago PD with their, unexplained or supernatural cases. So one day he gets called into a crime scene of a grisly double homicide where he kind of finds out that somehow that is connected to the dark magical Chicago. So of course it's going to be an urban fantasy and there's going to be demons and magic, and of course it's fast-paced. It's such a good concept. I really loved this book, for it being a first book. I'm sold. I definitely plan on continuing this entire series. So it was a 5 stars for me for sure. I also finished Starside by Brandon Sanderson. This is the second book of the Skyward series. So this is about a 17-year-old girl named Spencer who wants to be a pilot just like her dad, but her dad had a bad reputation. So she was having a very hard time getting into a flight school, which was pretty much in the first book. And, she wanted nothing more other than to become a pilot and save the human race. So in the second book, we are following Spencer, who has gotten into a flight school, and what happens after that. So this was a very, very interesting read because this one, of course, is going to be in a different dimension. So I felt like it was a lot slower than the first book, in my opinion, but I get it that, it is part of a series, and sometimes second book could just be like dedicated for, character building or just connecting, a bridge pretty much between the first and the second book. So I felt like this was definitely going somewhere, and I am on the 3rd book right now, so I can see, why and some of the things that were happening in this book, why they were happening. Yeah, still a good read in my opinion, and I gave it 4 stars. And then I also read another YA on the subject of unmentionable things by Julia Walton. So this is about Phoebe, a high school student who is kind of like getting ready for her Ivy League college, but she also happened to anonymously blog about sex ed on a social media platform like Twitter. So of course, nothing good will come from talking about sex out in public, and she gets bullied by an adult female who is pretty much trying to shut her down. So for a YA book, I really loved it because I felt like the concept is brilliant, and this is a topic that needs to be addressed, and using a social media platform to get the message across, I find it to be actually pretty smart. Yes, there are many things in this book you can just Google and find out yourself, but I think it's more about, awareness and being fiercely informative. So on that regard, using social media to get the message across, yeah, that's why I said it's just brilliant in my opinion. So of course I gave this book 5 stars. It was super interesting. Then I also read Killers of a Certain Age by Deanna Rayburn, which I have a complete spoiler-free review that I suggest you check it out right here. So these are the 10 books I read last month, which I feel super excited about, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Like, subscribe, and leave me comments down below. I will see you next time. Bye.